Hello, hello, Ailsa. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing really great, Calan. How are you doing?
I'm very excited to have you on the podcast. So I'm doing very good. You reached out to me, and I actually had followed Drag Me, which we're going to be talking about in today's episode. I actually followed it on Instagram and already liked it and was excited. So this was a very exciting, serendipitous moment for me. So in saying that, can you tell us more about Drag Me? What is it?
Yeah, so Drag Me is basically a one-stop like mobile app that is made for both fans and artists. So we have basically two sides of the platform. Um on one side, it's basically an aggregation of all of the events for drag that exist because right now they're fragmented across the internet. And on the artist side, it's more of like productivity tooling or support to make sure that folks can really create a sustainable career in drag for themselves without having to go onto reality TV to be able to kind of do that.
Nice. That's awesome. So it's creating this space where if you want to go to a drag performance, you can go to Drag Me the app. You can go see who's performing in your location and like buy tickets to their shows. Is that possible on the app?
Yeah, exactly. So you can buy tickets to the shows. We'll recommend local shows that you probably haven't heard before. We're building in a recommendation engine, so we'll be learning all the time all of the different things that people like, and we'll be able to make more accurate recommendations to what events to go to or tickets to buy or what merchandise to buy, as we'll kind of house e-commerce in the app as well. So I'm really excited about that because over time that's only going to get better, and that means the app's going to get better. So
Yeah.
it's
And
awesome.
from my point of view looking in, it seems like this is also very like community centric of like supporting drag artists because we know, you go and watch a drag performer at your local bar or your local whatever, it's not exactly the most lucrative career. So what kinds of things do you have baked in there that really help support the artists?
Yeah, so I think the main thing for the artist support is we try and put as much of the fees on the fan side as possible. We make sure that anytime an artist is posting an event or ticketing event with us, they're going to get the full face value of the ticket, and we'll charge the transactional fee to the fan. So that's going to be a big step up given that, Eventbrite, Ticketmaster have all recently, I think, increase their fees. Industry average is like 10 to 24%. And we're hopefully going to be charging around 9% to make sure that we kind of undercut that and we can support, the low income community that the queer community is.
Yeah, because we're tended to get the shaft when it comes to a lot of just life in general.
Uh,
So it's nice when we can support community and each other. Uh, I'm curious, what lessons have you learned from building the app so far? We're gonna dive a little bit into like the entrepreneur side of this endeavor.
Yeah, I think for me, I spent 12 years in product development and product design. So the idea of like building an app is fairly natural to me. I think the thing that really was the big jump was making that um leader from product design to owning my own business and having to wear many hats. Whilst product design, you have the balance of research and design itself. Now I'm doing about 20 different disciplines as an entrepreneur. So I've learned a lot, even in the short time that I've been doing this, which is about a year.
Okay, so was this your first jump into entrepreneurship?
It was, yeah. I spent about 12 years navigating the tech industry, and a big component of why I started this was I was kind of sick of working for other people, and the toxicity that really exists in the tech industry in general. And I wanted to create almost like a safe haven in tech where folks could go and know it was going to be psychologically safe, or at least safer than these kind of places that exist currently.
I hear that. I'm sure you're very familiar with queer tech. So I know that queer tech is doing really great work in that environment, trying to change those stats, trying to change those things in the typical, working world. And then I think it's out in tech in the US is also, got their stuff going on. So basically the old toxic sayings of like olden day work is driving a lot of us out of that work. I have to admit that's also why I left. Not I wasn't in corporate world, but like that's why I had to leave kind of that world because I was like, I can't work with people anymore like this because they just don't understand our community to the degrees that I would want them. And some would argue we need to stay there to balance that out. But I know there's good people doing that. So we're going to be the entrepreneur ones.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
down.
yeah, what was the hardest part about starting your own business as a 2S LGBTQIA plus founder, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm experiencing it right now to a degree, which is like getting funding. So far we've been entirely bootstrapped. I've managed to kind of survive off of business loans and my own kind of savings. Going into fundraising is a entirely different beast I've found. And it's really hard to talk to cis het kind of investors about a market as niche as folks consider drag to be at this point, and also queer community to be. It's really hard to kind of explain how big that is on a global level at this point.
Yeah, definitely the hetero community doesn't, well, maybe some of the women, but the guys definitely will just kind of glaze over. I was just in Montreal at Startup Fest actually, because there was the Queer Tech had the pitch going on for I think it was like 60K. I think the winners actually ended up Binder. Shout out to Binder. They're a queer dating app that ended up winning. I think they actually ended up getting 70K. But in that environment, it was a very heteronormative environment. And every time somebody came up to me, more specifically, the men would come up to me and they would ask me, "Oh, what's your business? What's the bow? What do you do?" And I was just like, "Okay, here we go, queer Netflix." And you just see like the glaze that happens on the eyes, and you're like, don't worry, I'll give you an out. I'll tell you what we do, but I'll give you an out of being like, okay, gotta go this way now." And it's just kind of what happens in that world. So when did you start doing your fundraising? And is there any specific experiences you'd like to talk about that?
I think I knew from the beginning I was gonna have to start prepping for fundraising, to be honest. So even from the beginning, last summer, I was reaching out to investors here in Vancouver just to kind of build my network and, figure out how to navigate the world both physically and digitally as we'll be going into the States as well, and how to do that to the best degree as a queer founder. And like you say, I've definitely found like women in particular or folks who are running those underrepresented groups in tech are super understanding. And when you get to that very kind of normal corporate culture, it's that glaze over moment where you're just not going to win them over until they have kind of found out for themselves the power that kind of exists there, right?
Yeah, and I also find that with those kinds of specifics, numbers talk very loudly. And so it's unfortunate that it's a sad truth that as LGBTQ founders, Start Out did a study actually that we are better than our cisgender heterosexual counterparts at, providing more jobs, having more exits, and filing more patents, but we get like literally 0.5% of the funding. And it's just insane when we have the data now to back it up saying, well, we're actually a better bet that you still have to go above and beyond any like cisgendered white guy to be like, look, my numbers are so much better. And you just have to work so much harder to get that when like somebody else could just be like, oh, I have this idea. And they're like, oh, here's money. And it drives me absolutely bonkers. But hey, we're going to be around to prove them all wrong.
It's very true. Yeah, yeah. I've definitely kind of noticed that as well. And, navigating that world is always a little harder. I found dipping into it as little as possible has been helpful, to be honest.
Yeah. Is there anything else other than what we've just been talking about that you didn't expect about being an entrepreneur?
I didn't expect to enjoy it so much, if I'm honest. I put it off for a very long time. I even back in like 2017, I was working at an agency with my direct reports, and we were all gearing up to leave because the environment was not great. And they had basically told me to kind of start my own agency or my own thing. And I'd always told myself I didn't really have it in me to be like a founder or a CEO. I wanted to kind of stick to my product design role. But when it came down to it and figuring out what I wanted to do next after I got laid off last October, it just it didn't make sense for me to go back into that world. I wasn't happy in that world, and I kind of decided it was just time to bet on myself and believe that I can do this and believe in the idea that I have and the community that's around me.
I love that, and I'm very happy that you've done that. I recently had Bobby Reset on the podcast, and she started Virtual Gurus, if you're familiar with it. And she tells the story of how she was so insecure about her own capabilities coming from an indigenous background, a queer background, a woman background, that she actually put on, I think she says Kijiji, where she's like, somebody needs to be my, CEO of my company, and put it out there when she was already doing all the stuff and it was already rolling, but she felt that she still couldn't be that role. And so hired the CEO, but then 8 months later was like, no, this is not the vision. This is not what's happening. And then had to fire him and took back over. And like that journey taught her that it's like, I can do this. I am capable, more capable than I think. And I think what the queer community specifically needs to lean on is our mentors and being able to make those more accessible and to be loud about what we're doing so that, we can get access to those mentors, but then also become those mentors later on to other folks.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some wonderful places that are doing kind of mentorship. You mentioned a couple of them, like out in tech. Start Out is great as well, out of the States. There's even trans tech as well, which has been spun up by Angelica Ross. And she is running that right now. So there are definitely the groups and the communities to be able to support us starting to kind of collectively do that. I think we're still a long way off. Even looking at that 0.5% for us, if you look at, women even, they've struggled to get from 2% to 3% of that venture capital money and for decades. And it's going to take a long time, but I think our community is so supportive of one another that it's going to be a lot easier for us to do that, hopefully.
Yeah. And I think it's our resilience that like comes our natural resilience from being of the community that we just like it's baked into us because we have to.
Yeah, absolutely. We have that resilience, but we also have that imposter syndrome, right? Like you were talking about, like, I can't do this because I haven't seen someone like me do it before. And so someone's got to do it first. And I guess I opted into that. You opted into that. We're all opting into that to some degree by pursuing this. And so that makes me really excited because you start to see those changes happen throughout the industry a little bit at a time, which is great.
Yeah, definitely. I look at it almost like a little bit of like a protest of like the way that things are. Just because things have been the way they are doesn't mean they should stay the way they are. They need to grow and evolve. And us becoming entrepreneurs and actually baking in those differences and those changes we want to see happen into our companies and being like, look, we're doing so much better than you. And we implemented all these things we were telling you to do in this corporate position that you weren't listening to. So I like to use it as like my own little like protest against rage against the machine.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I was my last corporate gig, I think, really swung it for me. I was like, if these folks can lead a team, I can lead a team. Like,
Definitely.
Like if these folks can do this, I can definitely do a lot better than
A
that.
hundred percent. And on that note, I wanted to add into the mentor list is the CGLCC, the Canada's 2S LGBTQIA plus uh, Chamber of Commerce, because I know that very soon, because we're in the summer months when this is coming out, that they will be accepting mentees and mentors for their mentorship program. I believe that starts roughly around September, October, but they'll be accepting applications probably through August, maybe early September. I'm going to get the details on that, but just so folks who are listening know, that's also a really great resource to look into. I went through their mentorship program and it was phenomenal. I want to dive back more into the actual Drag Me app. So, what are you working on currently that you're excited about?
So actually what we did last week is we released the artist side of the app, which is exciting. We put it in kind of a test environment and invited some of the opt-in drag queens who had volunteered to kind of test things for us. So I'm really excited to start getting feedback on that so that we can get that out to the public fairly soon. Once that's out, the artists will really have the tools that they need to post the events and ticket those events. So we'll start to see the app growing and we'll start to be able to build an audience. And I think that's the really big thing that I'm super excited about is just watching as this thing grows, watching as we kind of learn from folks in the drag scene, whether it be the artists or the fans themselves, so that we can really shape these apps to how folks need drag to be or want drag to be in their lives.
Fantastic. So, just to be clear, you're not fully launched yet to drag artists to add their stuff on, but you have like your test group that you're working on things with.
Correct. Yeah. In the next couple of weeks, we actually will be releasing the full app, which will be exciting. We have about 83 partners in the States right now, drag queen wise, who we will be launching to first and hopefully then start to see the ball rolling on those things. So hopefully in a couple of weeks, you'll start to see a lot of launch posts coming from our social media, maybe a little bit of a change in website. So yeah, fingers crossed. Keep an eye out.
That's really, really exciting. Continuing on with that thread of thought, what are exciting things in the future that you're really excited about with Drag Me?
I think like coming from my product design background, I'm really excited to get back into the research stage of it all. So when I was starting this, um, going through product development, I did a bunch of user research, user interviews with drag artists and fans to kind of really learn what they needed. That for me was the most exciting part of this, like being able to just like sit down all day and really kind of dig into what people need and start to figure out the solutions to those problems. I think that like is where I really shine as a leader, just given that I have that product development background instilled in me.
Nice. Oh, that's exciting. Well, okay. So, where can folks find out more about yourself and find out about Drag Me? Can they download the app right now? What's the details?
Yes, the app is available on the App Store. You will only be able to sign up as a fan if you're doing it right now. Hopefully, if you're listening to this in a couple of weeks, then it will already be available to you. So yeah, please go to the App Store, both for Apple and also for Android. And then we have socials. Our tag across socials is dragme.io, which is also our web address.
Perfect. So people can find you there. What about yourself? Is there anywhere you'd like people specifically to reach out to you if they're interested in connecting?
Yeah, I mean, if you have any ideas, if you are interested in being a partner, please reach out to me, Ailsa, so AILSA at dragme.io. I'm always happy to kind of hear from the folks that we're trying to serve, because that's how we get better. So please, yeah, shoot me an email anytime, and hopefully we can learn a lot from all of you.
Perfect. We'll make sure to have all of these links in the show notes so that folks can get in contact with you if they'd like. Thank you so much for being on the show today. This has been absolutely delightful, and I'm so excited for when Drag Me actually launches and like it's like international and supporting our drag performers because that's probably one of my favorite parts of being part of the queer community. Growing up 19, the moment I could go to the club, drag performances were like my favorite part of it. That and dancing, but like to go and watch drag, it's the perfect kind of balance between I'm a little tired, I want to have a drink, but I don't want to talk in this super loud environment. I just want to watch something. So I'm very glad that you've come up with this and that you're going to be supporting our performers.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge reason why we're doing this. I mean, growing up in the UK, there was a drag queen from my hometown. So I got to see that on mainstream TV as a kid. And I think that was the first time I'd really thought about getting to adulthood, going through that adolescence part. So I think hopefully we'll start to be able to see more and more queer folks in those positions, supporting, building community, and also just entertaining us. It is a great art form in itself.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Ailsa.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.